Where do you come from? What is your background? What is your backstory?
I grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere.
I know there is always, like real, I would say, values once you know who you are. So please, Josh.
My older brother died in a helicopter crash. Really weird time. Very dark, very confusing.
What type of business owner should actually pick podcasting?
I don't care about the audience.
What are you exactly pricing on? Is it the hourly rate? Is it the outcome?
Outcome, only.
What would be the one suggestion you would give yourself, Josh?
Keep asking yourself who you are until you find Christ.
What's going on? What's going on, everybody who's actually listening to this podcast right now? First of all, guys, welcome back to the Nikhil Sai Show, which is hosted by me, the Nikhil Sai. And guess what's going on today? We're back with another amazing guest. The guest who's actually hopping on today is an expert, especially helping people monetize their experience and passion through actually creating an audience. And he's very good at podcasting, and he's recently been on Funnel Hacking Live stage as well. And he's interviewed all these crazy people you could imagine in the space, experts and everybody. Even Russell Brunson was on his show lately, and it's really exciting to see what they're actually coming up with. And he's been in all the major publications today. We're going to be having none other than Josh Forti, who's going to be actually sharing a lot of value. Hey, Josh.
Hey, man, appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, this is super exciting. I'm glad we actually made some time for this. I am super excited. I would love to get into like the nitty-gritty questions on like how somebody could actually create influence and grow their business and to create massive impact and launch a podcast and scale all of that good stuff about the business. But before we get into like the business stuff, I would love to understand your roots. Where do you come from? What is your background and what is your backstory? I know there's always, like real, I would say value, which helps us understand who are you and understand where you're coming from. And that adds so much more glitter to the podcast once you know who you are. So please, Josh, if you could introduce and take us backward and help us understand, that should be appreciated.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first off, I am honored that you think I'm an expert. I'm pretty dumb, and I own that. When people say like, you're this expert of this, I'm like, I'm pretty dumb. I have made a living interviewing smart people and learning how they think. And that's really where any wisdom that you hear today, I can assure you that it's, things that have come from smart people. And that kind of leads right in. I grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere, Indiana, like tiny little farm town, nearest neighbor, like a half mile away, right? Big cornfield in the middle of nowhere. I was homeschooled and I got into the world of social media after several failed business attempts back home. I started college for like one semester, and halfway through the first one, I'm like, nope, I'm out, right? This sucks. And no. So got in the world of entrepreneurship, and long story short, got in the game of Instagram, kind of right place, right time with Instagram, and blew that up to, at one point, we had an agency with about 7 million followers that we were owned or managed, and had a network of about 100 million. And it sounds really exciting. Don't get me wrong. And it was to a certain extent, but it sucked. Like it was 18 hours a day, every single day from the moment you woke up to the moment you went to bed, like, checking your phone and creating content and all this stuff. And so took that business and eventually my business partner and I, we split. No hard feelings or anything. It was just, we wanted to go different directions. And so then I got into the world of funnels and Russell Brunson. I picked up the Top Secrets book and was blown away by the fact that like, holy crap, you could actually make money with this, right? Because I was making probably $6,000 a month take home, right? Like even with all that. And so that got into that whole world, info products, coaching, consulting, service-based stuff, and realized, and I'm, condensing down so we can dive in, further any of this, but realized kind of along the way that the math just wasn't working out selling low ticket, right? Like, even though I knew how to get followers and stuff, it was like, man, like I want to like level up my thinking. I kept hearing that, mindset was the key to success. And so I was kind of getting into that world of high ticket and learning about how to sell that stuff. And I was like, you know what? I need to get around successful people, right? I need to get around and interview them and whatnot. And so I started a podcast, and the entire purpose of the podcast was to go and just interview smart people, learn from them, ask them life's biggest questions, right? And learn how smart they were. And then, hopefully I could figure out how to sell stuff high ticket one day, right? And I take a very different approach to podcasting than pretty much everyone else. Very different, actually. And we can talk about more about that. But shortly after I started the podcast, my older brother died in a helicopter crash. And that really wrecked my world. I shut down my company, or I kind of actually sold off my portion of it. And I went around the world, found myself overseas with my wife. While we were overseas, living off of savings, she got sick with like this intestinal eating parasite, where she was so sick, she couldn't stand up. She couldn't function. She had like a 100-degree fever. Like never in my life have I seen someone that sick, right? And like we're over in the Philippines with a propeller plane to a dirt runway, 4 hours bus ride in the middle of nowhere. And like you go to the hospital, there's ants crawling up the wall, there's no toilet seats, the doctor walks in flip-flops, right? Like it was bad. And so fast forward, I find myself, I got to get her home. I drained all my savings. I love my wife way more than money, as I'm sure, you do as well. People you love, and money can come back. And so found myself back in the States, living in my girlfriend at the time, and she's my wife now, her mom's house in the basement over Christmas, where, 10 months earlier, we had an agency doing, 80 or 100,000 a month. And it was like a really, really weird time. Very dark, very confusing. And I remember just sitting there thinking to myself going, how did I get right here? You know what I mean? Like you have those moments where you're just like, I mean, you probably never had that, but like those moments of you're dark, you're not sure what's going on. And so long story short, once again, I ended up hiring a coach. Her name was Katie, and she totally radically transformed my whole world. And instead of coaching me on business and on funnels and on marketing and on ads, like most people would, she coached me on identity and mindset and like who I was, and asked me questions that I had never been asked before. And through that process, I learned who I was, and I was able to overcome a lot of insecurities and not feeling like I was enough and external validation and all of these things, and became a much different person, right? Someone that is very certain and confident, and had my podcast going throughout this whole time. And that's when stuff really started to change with the podcast. We blew that up and started interviewing some really, really cool people. I made a couple $1,000,000 with that, never running any ads or anything. And that's pretty much how we got to today. I mean, there's a lot that was missed, but that's the gist of it. And so now I have a podcast. I interview smart people because I'm dumb. I learn how they think. I learn their problems, and I get paid to solve their problems. And I hang out with my wife and love Jesus, and about to have my first kid. And here we are.
Oh, congratulations! First of all, that sounds like an exciting news, and I'm rooting for your family and your future, definitely. Now it's really exciting to kind of hear what I've done as a roadmap for myself, in your story, because it's like almost same, like I was broke, I was dumb, I don't know what to do. I was looking at these people who have like these awards. How could somebody make like $1 million possibly from one funnel? And I was like, I want to get there. I want to learn what these guys do. I couldn't pay for their coaching. I asked like, hey, how much do you charge per hour? They were like $2,000. I'm like, guess what? I had like no money in my bank. I'm like, okay, let me interview you. And I just asked the questions which I wanted to learn from. And that's where I found my mentors, my clients, the best connections, like what we're doing right now. And it just snowballed. I mean, it's really intriguing to see how much a podcast can do for a person if they really do it the right way. Now, I know there's so many people who are in their day-to-day and busy life. The biggest question everybody has is they look at other people's podcasts, they get value from it. They want to do it to an extent, but they're not sure if they should or not. Now, I know there is not a yes or no question, but if you would be asked a question like, hey, what type of business owner should actually pick podcasting as a side or main gig? And if that's really important enough, if you could speak about that, that should really give good context for business owners who are actually listening to this podcast.
It's a great question. So the short answer is everyone, but the reason why is different than where you think.
Mm-hmm.
When I got into the podcasting space, like everybody has a podcast. Why should I start a podcast? Right? Like everybody and their brother and their mother and everybody, right? And I think the mistake that we make as entrepreneurs, when I say that I approach podcasting fundamentally different than everyone else, is because how I think about podcast has nothing to do with what most people traditionally think about podcasting. When most people think about podcasting, they think, how do I create a podcast where I'm going to interview people and I'm going to build this audience, right? I'm going to go and I'm going to build an audience, a listener base of people that are listening and providing value, and, I'm providing value to them, and I'll build my status and my credibility and, all of that. I don't think about it that way. I remember sitting there and thinking, okay, who's the most successful podcaster that I know? Well, Joe Rogan, right? The biggest podcaster in the world. And I started looking at his podcast. And I started looking at what he was doing. And I remember sitting there thinking, this guy never, ever talks to the audience. He literally just talks to his people on the show.
Yeah.
He doesn't be like, so explain to the listeners, da, da, da. He's just focusing on having and creating a really, really good conversation. And because he's focused on having these long form, unedited, just deep conversations, he builds these insanely powerful relationships with people, right? And so as I looked at the podcasting space and I went, all right, well, what do most people do, particularly entrepreneurs, when they try to go build a podcast? And what they do is they try to take a model of podcasting that was designed for mainstream, meaning non-entrepreneurs, and they tried to apply that model to business owners and to themselves. It doesn't work. Let me give you an example, okay? So I want you to imagine, what do you sell? Are you marketing stuff, right?
Yep. We do have done-for-you services, coaching, software, a lot of elements to it.
Right. So you're a marketer, right? And so if I'm a marketer, this is what most people do. I'm an entrepreneur. I sell marketing. I'm going to go start a podcast. And that podcast is about what? Marketing.
My podcast is just me learning. Yeah. Learning, and especially people who have done good in marketing. Yep.
Right. Good at marketing, right? And so now you go, okay, cool. I'm going to start a podcast. It's going to be about marketing or marketing focus. And now to create content, I'm going to go get people to interview that are experts at marketing.
Marketing,
right?
yeah.
So now I'm going to sit down, and if I'm focused on the audience, which is where most people focus, now not only when I get on this podcast and do interviews, the people that I'm interviewing, they're not my potential customer because they don't have the problem that I solve, because I'm good at marketing, they're good at marketing. So we solve the same problem. But not only that, now you're telling your entire audience that, hey, I've got this podcast, I'm a marketer, but I'm not the expert. This person's the expert. You should go buy from them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And now you're like taking all of your customer and being like, don't listen to me, listen to this guy. And then people look at it and they go, why am I not making any money on the podcast? And I'm like, I mean, I don't know, because maybe you're designed a podcast that's not going to make you any money, right? But like, we as entrepreneurs, how we make money is we sell stuff. Mainstream doesn't do that. Mainstream focuses on how do I create a big audience and massive stuff so I can sell advertising and all that. Right? But that's not how we as entrepreneurs do business, right? So I looked at that and I went, I want to get around successful people. I want to sell high ticket. And when I say high ticket, by the way, like some people are like $5,000. I'm like, no, 15, 25, then that's the low end. $100,000, $200,000. That's high ticket. Okay. Like that's what we're talking about. So I'm like, I want to get around people that can have those conversations. I want to learn from, I'm dumb, right? I want to like learn from these people so that I can solve their problems. And right. So instead of me starting a podcast about marketing, even though I sold marketing services, I created a podcast that was about topics of conversation that I knew my ideal client wanted to come talk about. Because how I have approached a podcast with the golden mic method is I don't care about the audience. It's not that I don't care about them. I do, right? But like, I don't focus on the listener. I focus on the person I'm interviewing. And how do I create an environment and a conversation and a place where we're going to build a relationship, where we can dive deep, where we can really go and bond. And what's fascinating is when I actually ask people where they make money on their podcast, like 90% of people say, oh, like the network, we got blah, blah, blah. And sometime down the road, it always turns into opportunities. And I'm like, so why don't you focus on that? Right? Like, make sense?
It does.
So I built my whole business as this, farm kid getting into this world of like, oh my gosh, like I don't have any credentials. I didn't have money. I didn't have connections. Like I was a nobody, very dumb, right? Like, and I'm like, if I can go and I can just focus on asking the right questions and I can just focus on creating an environment where I'm going to talk to my ideal customer, give them a place to come talk about what they want to talk about and where I can be powerful and step into my magic, build this relationship with them, then I can turn that into business. And so then afterwards, then I, show them, hey, you have this problem, I can solve it. I'll send you over information. And now we have a relationship where I'm selling, 50 or 100 marketing packages. Right? And so I just see so many people when they start a podcast, the biggest mistake they make is they think the topic or the angle of their show has to be about their thing that they're good at. And I'm like, I sold marketing and I would get on a podcast and I would go and look at people and I'd go, you ever done psychedelics? What do you think of Donald Trump? What's your religion? What do you think? And we would talk about these crazy, crazy out there topics, right? Or health or God, whatever. And then like a week later, they're buying 50,000 marketing packages. And people are like, how? And I'm like, because when you sell high ticket, I learned this, I don't want to say early on. It took me a while. I sucked at sales for so long. But I realized that the higher the price of an item, the less the person buying is buying the product. They're buying you. And the person just wants to know you're cool, right? And so when I would sit down and have these conversations, right? When I would sit down and have these conversations with people, I would connect with them and I would make them feel cool and amazing and like let them talk about themselves and about what they want to talk about, what they want to geek out about. And now we have a relationship, right? We can get into the psychology behind all that. This book here is one of my favorite books ever that kind of backs us all up. But that's how I approach things very differently than most people. And the more I focus on the interview, ironically, the more listeners I get because the conversation is just better quality anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. Actually, it's so deep in terms of like how you're explaining it. There is just multiple golden nuggets here. One of the key takeaways for me is making a podcast as more of a general conversation instead of making it scripted like what mainstream does. And definitely one question, a follow-up question on what you're doing in terms of monetization of podcast. It's interesting how you're actually leveraging the podcast to close ultra high ticket deals, in my opinion. But coming back, if you could like walk us through your funnel and give us like an understanding, are you like selling the guests or are you selling your audience indirectly, or like, how does like the whole conversion process actually works for your business? If you could help us understand that.
Yeah. And you're going to laugh, right? Because like, I sell marketing, but like I suck at marketing. I'm not that good of a marketer. I suck at design. I don't build funnels very well. Like I have a funnel builder. I'm not like, when I say I'm not that smart, like I just realize that I'm dumb at a lot of things and how do I just rig the game so I can win, right? Mm-hmm. So when I sell a process, when I go through the process of things, I don't sell anything. I know that people don't buy stuff. They buy people, right? But if they want to buy a product, they want their problem solved. right? And I learned this. I learned this from Sam Ovens. Are you familiar with Sam Ovens?
Oh, who doesn't know Sam Ovens, especially
Right.
the people in the
Right?
marketing
He's
space?
amazing.
Yeah.
And so I was in his mastermind, a 36-hour mastermind, right? And there's like 100 people in there. And he said, you know why amateurs like struggle to sell stuff? And he said, amateurs focus on all the wrong things. They focus on the product, or they focus on, what to say, or the button color, or how it's presented, or the price, or blah, blah, blah. All the stuff is not important. So do you know why I am able to sell a high ticket so easily? Like, keep in mind, this guy's got a 100-person mastermind at $36 a head with an 8-month wait list, right? And I'm like, please tell me, Sam, right? He said, well, I focus on how my ideal client thinks. And if you can just understand how they think, then you can just match that. And so what he shared with me was high ticket buyers, particularly, the higher the ticket, the more this is true. There's basically 3 things we know about them, right? The first is that they buy from people they know, like, and trust. I call it buying from their friends, right? And the example I always use with this is I have a guy, he bought a sports car, a friend of mine, and he paid like $100,000 for it, right? And he pulls up and I'm like, dude, this is awesome, da da da. I was like, what'd you pay for it? He goes, oh, I paid $100,000. I said, why, dude? Literally right down the road here, there's like $100 car, like same exact car, same make, same model. It was $100,000. And he was like, yeah, but I knew the guy. I trusted him, whatever. If I ever have any problems or whatever. And I'm like, this guy paid $20 more because he knew the guy, right? Trust. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I was interviewing a lady who she sells 100,000 packages, 100,000 coaching, paid in full upfront. And she said, successful people say no to almost everything. But the one thing that they won't ever say no to, or rarely say no to, is having their problem solved, right? They buy to remove problems. So they buy from people they like and trust. They buy to solve problems. And then third is they make buying decisions quickly because they value time more than money. And Sam is actually the perfect example of this, right? So Sam told the story. He was moving over here from New Zealand or wherever it was to New York. He needed to buy a penthouse. And he said that the realtor FaceTimed him and was like, hey, I'm going to do this tour of this penthouse. And it was like a $5 million penthouse or something. It was something stupid, right? And he FaceTimes, he does the walkthrough. And like 15 minutes into the phone call, Sam was like, I'm in, buy it. And that was it. And he made a $5 million decision in like 15 minutes over FaceTime. He's like, I don't have time to think about that. I've got business to do, right? And so they make these decisions quickly. They don't need lots of information. They don't need lots of persuasion. They need to buy from someone they know, like, and trust, right? Their friends. And they need it to be clear, right? They need it to make sure that their problem is solved. And so my process is everything I do is just based on psychology. And I go, well, if that's true, then how do I just reverse engineer this, right? So my process of a podcast, to answer your question, is there's this book called Persuasion. I don't know if you've ever read it. It is freaking phenomenal. I'll summarize the entire book for you. Okay. The whole book says whatever happens right before you do something, like right before something happens, will determine the outcome of the thing. And in the book, they talk about the example of like, they did this experiment where they walked up to 50 people and they asked the person, they said, hey, we're going to read you a story. Can you describe the person in the story? Like, describe them. The only difference was like an hour or like 5 minutes beforehand, they walked up to a different person, walked up to 25 of the people and they asked them, hey, I got to tie my shoe really quick. Can you hold my coffee? And 25 of them got cold coffee and 25 of them got warm coffee. That was the only difference. And then somebody else walked up to them. They read them off the story and they asked the people, hey, describe the person. Over 90% of the people that got the cold coffee described the person as cold and uncaring. Over 90% of the people that got the warm coffee described the person as warm and caring. It was the same story.
Wow.
So
that's crazy.
That's crazy, right? So like the concept of whatever happens right before something will determine the outcome. And so I looked at that and I went, well, what if I were to go and create a podcast, create a place where my ideal customer, I could sit down and interview them. We talked about something they wanted to talk about. Not what I want to talk about, not what I'm good at. What do they want to talk about, right? And then I sit down there, I interview them. We talk for an hour or 2 hours or however long it is, right? And then afterwards, I don't try to sell them right then. Afterwards, I'm like, cool, box number 1, they buy from people they know, like, and trust. Cool, now we have a relationship. Now we're friends, right? Second is they buy to solve a problem. So now as soon as I get off the interview, I go, well, thanks so much for coming on, da da da. Hey, what are you doing about X? Because I know they're business owners, right? Hey, how are you getting leads in your business? How are you doing social media stuff? Da, 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 da. And they go, oh, we're still, and they start telling me about it. And I go, oh my gosh, well, why aren't you using whatever? And I just lead the conversation over to talking about their problem. And then they admit to me that they have a problem. They say they want it solved. And then I never sell them right there because that would seem disingenuous, right? Now I go, hey, cool, no problem. I'm going to prepare a 2-page Google Doc for you. I'm going to send you over some information on what I do, like, to solve this problem. Because you would crush it. Like, we could blow up your bit. We could give you so many more. right? Like you should be using this. It's, you know, a shame. Do you mind if, like, what's your phone number? I'll prepare this Google Doc. I'll send it over to you. No problem. They give me it. I ask them a couple questions. We hop off. And now they're expecting me to go and follow up with them with information about how to solve their problem right after they just did an hour-long or 2-hour-long interview with me about something that made them feel and look amazing, right?
Yep.
And then I just send over the Google Doc the next day. It outlines the entire process. And at the end, we get on a call and I close the deal. That's it. I don't use funnels. I don't use emails. I use a Google Doc and 2 texts.
To close a $100 contract. That is crazy.
Yeah. Or 30 or 50 or 100 or 200, whatever. Like whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because like,
But these are
like I learned this from Alex Hormozy, right? Like my number one struggle, and this is like, dude, I'm sure you hear this with your clients all the time, right? It's like traffic, leads, where do I get more people? Like people just struggle to get in front of their person. And I'm like, I'm selling to the wrong person. Alex Hormozy tweeted out, he said, solve the problems of the rich and they will make you one of them. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time. And I'm like, do you know the difference between, and you probably do, right? Like, what's the difference between selling a $25 product and a $25 product?
it's the person who's buying it. That's really the difference, actually. They have the financial capability.
Yeah. Like, you just add a zero. Right? Like, and you just find someone that can afford that one versus it's the same product, right? It's like, it doesn't take Rolex. It doesn't cost Rolex $50,000 to build a watch. It costs them, you know, maybe $100 more than a cheap watch, but they sell it for $50,000 because it's a different buyer. Right?
Yep.
And so when this is why I love high ticket, because when I really sat down and did the math and I looked at this, I went, okay, I'm dumb. I want to be around rich people and successful people. I want to learn how they think. I want to build relationships with them. If I can solve their problems, they will pay me lots of money for that. And I become valuable to them. And that's a whole nother thing about like building powerful relationships. So why don't I just not sell stuff for cheap anymore? Why don't I just raise my prices? And first it was $10,000 and I couldn't believe it. And then it was $15,000 and I couldn't believe it. And then it was $25,000. I couldn't believe it. And then it was $30,000. I couldn't believe it. And I will never forget the day that I knew that I would never go back is I interviewed a guy on my podcast, right? And he referred me over to, we did business, right? He became a client and then he referred me over to this guy. And I was like, hey, I was like, I don't have time to do any more work. Like, please don't refer. Like, I can't take on anymore. He goes, dude, you want to know this guy. And I'm like, I don't have time. He just connected me anyway. Right. Put us in a thread and was like, this is guy's Josh, talk to him. And so I was like, okay. So I took the call with them and we get on and we walk through the stuff and I walk him through my process or whatever. And the guy goes, oh dude, this is amazing. We want to work with you. And so I'm like, okay, I'll send you over a proposal. And so we get off the phone and keep in mind, this is from a referral from somebody I got on from the podcast. Right. And I sent him the proposal. And at the time I was selling my services for $30,000. And I thought that was great, but I didn't have time to take on any more clients. And so I literally went and the exact same, like the whole thing was the same. And I just increased the price from 30 to 100 and I sent it over to him to try to just make him go away. And like the next day he emailed back and was like, sounds good. Send me the invoice. And I'm like, what? What? Right? Like this is a different world. But I didn't have a way before the podcast. I didn't have this way to get in front of those people. Right. And if I use the old model, if I use the model of a podcast that says, let me go and try to build an audience, if I focus on the listeners or whatever, right? Then it's all about the listener. And then it's not about the person you're interviewing. And you're still going to have the same problem because now you're not the expert. Right. But if you just create a place where these people want to come talk to you, you can get in front of anybody you want. And so has been my method and approach to all of this. Yeah.
Wow. That's very brief. And
you see what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, how do I just rig the game? I'm super dumb. Like I had to just go and like, just send over a proposal. Yeah.
Yeah. Just add zeros and just let people talk on whatever they want to talk on the show and let things happen. That's quite interesting, Josh. I mean, one thing which is definitely interesting is the unique system you have crafted in your own way of high ticket selling. I think it's interesting to see that anybody could actually replicate this. But the question comes, some technical questions which I'm thinking about while you're explaining is, like every client has a unique problem. How do you scale it? Is it productized? Like sales cycle takes longer. What are you exactly selling? Is this like an agency model or consulting model? Like if you can help us understand like the machine, the operating side of the business, that would give people better perspective and of course myself as well.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So I will tell you what I've done and I will tell you what we do with other people as well. I always joke, I don't want a business, right? I'm in business because business gives me freedom, right? I am in the business of making money and I want high profit and I want to be able to go and like, I'm married and I want to hang out with my wife and we're about to have a kid and I like hiking and studying Jesus, right? So for me, I don't want to scale. So how I scale is I scale the dollar amount that I charge, not the amount of customers I bring in, right?
Interesting.
So if you sell something for $25,000 and you want to go to 100, you can either sell 4 customers or you can just raise your prices to $100. right? So I do that. Now we do have the issue of, not the issue, but we do have the, the people that come in and they say, hey, listen, this is great, Josh, but I do play a volume game. I sell a $2,000 product, a $10,000 product, $25,000 product, whatever. Let me ask you, do you do webinars or 5-day challenges, stuff like that?
We do straight high ticket. Our programs and services start at $10,000, similar to what you're doing, but to not the guests, but the audience actually.
But how do you do sales calls? Like, how do you get people on the phone?
Yeah, of course. The traffic part is pretty simple. It's like a Facebook ad or typical YouTube ad to an opt-in page and a VSL calendar to, them shopping on a call and converting. The typical sales, high ticket sales funnel.
Yep. So I have done quite a few 5-day challenges before. I just did, one with Dan. That was actually what I sold for a while as well. So I've gotten pretty good at those. And so I don't run ads, right? I've run ads like twice, and both times my ad account got banned. So like, it was like I made it to $400 and I just don't do them, right? But what I have used is JV partners. And so now the person that I'm interviewing on my show, I am now being very strategic to say, okay, these aren't my ideal clients, but they're my ideal JV partners, right? And so now when I'm going to go and do business with them, what it looks like is I'm not selling them an offer. I'm saying, hey, your audience has a problem that I solve, right? This is why it makes perfect sense. I'll cut you in on the deal. Why don't we just do a partnership together? And then they'll promote. That makes sense?
It does.
Now I'm getting traffic to like a 5-day challenge or a VSL or like a webinar where, let's say that person has a 100-person email list, right? Or whatever that is, a Facebook group or whatever. That one launch will generate hundreds of thousands or, over $1 million, right? Depending upon what it is. So I understand very much so that this model is for a specific type of person that, it's like how they get traffic or what they sell. But I look at it as don't focus, like the principle is the principle. It's not the tactic, right? I'm tactically applying this to getting clients, but I could also tactically apply this to JVs. I could tactically apply this to building relationships with successful people to raise money for real estate, right? I could, tactically apply this to, getting celebrities on my show to do business deals with them, right? There's a wide variety. The magic of it is that if I walk up to a successful person, whoever it is, whether it's a client that I'm trying to sell to, a JV partner, an investor, whatever, and I walk up to you and I say, hey, Nick, and you have no idea who I am, right? Hey, I'd love to sit down and talk with you for an hour about business. Can I get an hour of your time? You would be like, no, because I don't know you, right? There's no reason for that person to say yes, right?
Absolutely.
But if I have a podcast, if I have a show where the topic of this is about something that they want to talk about, right? To where when they hear about the podcast, they're like, yeah, I'd love to come talk about that, right? Now, if I walk up to that person, I say, hey, I love what you're doing with real estate. I love what you're doing with blank, whatever. I got a show where I interview people like you, talk about blah, blah, blah. I'd love to promote your message, get, more people, like make you look amazing. We can promote whatever you want to promote. You post coming on for an hour and like sitting down and jamming out. Now they don't have to say yes to me. They're saying yes to the podcast. And if they say yes, it makes their life better, right? So when you approach it from that perspective and you realize you have this asset that you can use to make someone else's life better, all of a sudden now you can get in front of anyone you want to get in front of. And so the logistics behind this says, know your model. For me, I'm like, cool. I know that for me, I want to make $1 million take home. That's me. And I'm good. Anything more than $1 million take home in the business side of things, like I'm probably going to go do something very different. Like I'm going to go and, I'm going to use assets. I'm going to do real estate or whatever. But like this model, it's like, cool. So how do I make $1 million take home? I can sell, let's say that's 2 million in revenue. My margins are way better than that. But like, let's just say, right? Cool. I can sell 20 people at 100 grand or 80 people at that. And that's it. I'm done. If I'm going to go volume, I'm going to go JV partners. If I'm going to do whatever that thing is. So that's the logistics behind it, is just understand what person you need. Is the who, not how concept, right? What person do you need to get in front of? And how do I create an environment that allows me to build a relationship with them and create this mutually beneficial experience?
That's really deep. I mean, that's kind of relieving actually to kind of understand that the goals could be deconstructed and reconstructed according to what we really want to achieve. And of course, we have already experienced this, the better the payment is, the better the quality of the client is, and the better the connection will be as well. So that's exciting to see. And coming back, is there any other ways you think the podcast could be monetized with? The JV partners is cool. You selling the guest indirectly is cool. Your own personal brand to sell your stuff is cool. And I know there's this advertising, spots which you could sell on the podcast, which is not so cool, but people do it. It's not exciting. But what other ways do you think a small business owner who might not have relatively big audience or couldn't get, let's say, Grant Cardone or Russell Brunson like you did to get on a podcast, how do you think a small business owner could actually monetize their podcast, a typical business owner?
I mean, the same thing, right? Like first, make sure you have a high ticket offer, right? Because it's not worth your time otherwise. Everybody should have a high ticket offer. But like, it's either you interview your ideal client and you build a relationship with them and you get to know them, and then you learn about their problems and then you show them how you can help. Or if you're a small business and you need more traffic, you find the JV partner that you would want to do a JV with that would promote your stuff, and you build a relationship with them and you show them why it's a win-win. And like, obviously it takes work to figure out the perfect offer and like figure out exactly how you'd position that. But like, if you knew that you only had one shot to get a JV person, right? And you're like, I only have one chance to like get this, you'd be so stressed out. And that's how most people operate, is they go, if I make this ask and it's wrong, oh my gosh, like I'm never going to. But if you knew that you could just have an unlimited amount of people that are potential partners, right? Or you would just go and you make the ask and say no, you'd get feedback and you tweak and adjust and do the next one and then until you got a yes, right? That's what a golden mic show like allows you to do, right? Is it allows you to just continue to get in front of people, and it solves that problem. So if you're small, I would just say like, either ask yourself, are you gonna build a relationship and are you selling directly to your client, or are you building a JV partnership? Are you building, what are you doing? And then go create that. And like, I'm sure as you grow, you can sell advertisement and, sponsorships and all that. I haven't gotten to that point yet. I've made a few $1,000,000 without it. So it really comes down to this concept of selling is serving, and not in the cheesy way. It's like, I don't sell anything, I just solve a problem. Well, I can't honestly know if I can solve your problem if I don't know you. But if I know you, then I can know if I can help you. So I'll interview someone and I'll get done. And sometimes I get done with the interview and I'm like, this person does not have the problem I solve. I'm not going to try to sell them because I can't solve their problem, right? But oftentimes I get done with an interview and I look at them and I go, wow, this guy's awesome, or this girl's awesome, right? Like, they should be bigger. Like, they have a problem that I know how to solve. Now I'm not going to be like, buy my stuff. I'm going to be like, you're incredible. And they actually believe that because I just talk with them for an hour or two, right? Like, they know that I know them, right? And there's genuine connection, and it's this game of relationships. It's like a systemized game of relationships, right? And then you go, and like, I'll give you the perfect example. Brad Gibb, right? One of my best friends. I don't know. Do you know Brad?
I'm familiar with him.
Okay.
I'm not like talking to him or anything like that. Yep.
Yeah, just super smart, right? And like, Brad is he's the smartest person I've ever met in my life, I think. Like, I mean, just brilliantly smart. Very difficult to sell because he's very intellectual, right? He's very smart. He thinks through things. He's very logical. He's got like 5 degrees, 3 different companies, all that. Brad and I would have these podcasts that we'd talk for like 2 or 3 hours long about money and investing in the stock market and the real estate and how it's all a bunch of BS and, whatever, right? And because I got to actually understand Brad's vision, we became partners, or we became friends. And so now the first deal we ever did together, he paid me $30,000. And then we did another deal. And then we did another deal. And then we did another deal. And all of a sudden, now I think Brad's paid me like $300,000 buyer. Why? Because Brad now, who's very hard to get a hold of and, like very guarded with his time, actually believes that I know him and understand his vision and understand his problem very well, right? Where anybody that's an ad or a salesperson, no one's going to believe, he's not going to believe any of them. He's too smart for that, right? So I didn't try to be smart. I tried to be dumb. And I was like, well, let me be dumb and let me just make him really smart. And then I can learn all about him and then I can just, right? And so that concept of this genuine connection, it allows you to sell things for outrageous amounts of, like more than most people can comprehend, right? It's like, right? Like, what do you mean you got paid $50, right? Or what do you mean you got paid, like I do a consulting days, right? It's $10,000. And it's like, what do you mean you got paid 10 for a day of your time? Oh, and by the way, they pay for travel if they make me fly out there, or they can come to my place, right? It's pure profit outside my time, right? Or 50 grand or whatever. And like, people can't comprehend that. But it's like, it's not that the money doesn't exist. It's that the person that you were trying to sell to didn't actually believe that you understood them. And so my approach was, I cannot compete. I can't compete with Alex Ramosi. I can't compete with the best salespeople on earth. I cannot compete with the smartest people on earth. I cannot compete. I can't. I don't know. But what I can do is I can listen really well. What I can do is I can ask really good questions. What I can do is I can really seek to understand someone's problem and genuinely show them how I can help solve that problem for them really easily. And as long as I can believe, or as long as I believe and know that I can get them a result, like $10,000 or $25,000 to someone that makes a couple $1,000,000 a year is like bucks or $25 to you.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Well,
It is.
You're a little bit, but you know what I'm saying? So that's the whole concept of it. It's like, it's thinking. Sam Ovens, how does my customer think? And I think the number one, like I'll turn it back to you. This is my final thought on this, is like, if people want to know the number one fastest way to change how much money they make, I genuinely believe the fastest, easiest, simplest way is just sell to rich people. Change your customer. Because you can sell the same exact thing, charge 10 times more for it. And instead of people like being like, oh, this is my last dollar, or I don't know if I'm going to, the person's like, sweet, sounds good. You're all paid up. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you doing this for me. They're thankful. They're attentive. They're coachable, and you got paid 10 times more money. And it's like, change your customer. Stop selling to broke people.
Yeah, I completely. I've been in the story. I've heard the stories, especially with the highest ticket clients. they expect things to go wrong and they're okay with the fact as long as it is controlled, and they kind of already have all the planned outcomes, and which is so relieving actually. Now coming back, you already have ran that agency model with like your Instagram business, and the revenue is good, but you kind of hated it. Now coming back, what is different with the model you're currently selling, and why is it so relieving at a service delivery standpoint, at an execution standpoint? I understand the sales side of it, the podcast, the package, the high ticket, the whole sales process, how you're actually converting into clients, well and good. I think people already, including myself, have golden nuggets through this. But at a delivery standpoint, how does that change? You said you don't want to be a business owner, which I believe you're not yet, which you're not trying to be, if I'm not mistaken. So how are you managing this? How does that look like at a back end fulfillment standpoint?
Yeah, for sure. I have a small team, right? So I have an assistant. I have a dedicated funnel builder. The funnel builder is just a contractor. But I want you to think about this for a second. Imagine you were a cook, okay? And somebody hired you to come in and cook food for a party that they were throwing, okay? And there's two people. Person one, you go to their house and it's a small little house and they don't have that much food. The sink's kind of small and like they don't have a lot of resources. They only have like 3 or 4 different ingredients for you to go through and do. And like you got what you need, but it's like you got limited resources, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then person number two is you pull up to their house and it is this mansion and they've got this huge kitchen and countertops and multiple ovens. They've got every single different food and resource you can imagine. They've got everything you could possibly need to go and succeed with it, right? And like you could just go and whatever you needed, you could just make magic. Which person would it be easier for you to go and cook an amazing meal for? The first or the second one?
Of course, the mansion guy is where you have the most resources and most probability of outcome.
100%. And it would take you less long to go and do that. And they probably have a crew to help you, right? Clean up and all that, right? That's the difference between a rich client and a poor client. Poor clients, like you go in and you could, even if you charge them a lot of money, or even if you only charge them a little bit of money, there's limited resources. And so like everything has to go right. And like you got to hope, spend so much time figuring out, oh, how do I go this wrong here, this wrong? And it's like you spend so much time and effort due to just lack of resources, right? And you don't get paid that much for it. But with a rich client, you walk in and like you're just like, yo, this is awesome. We're going to create magic, right? And you just go and you do the whole entire thing. And then their crew comes in and cleans up after you. And you're like, that was so easy. What the heck? Why? Even if they paid you the exact same amount of money, which they wouldn't, but even if they did, because the rich person or the person that had resources, they have more assets for you to be able to use. And it's easier to get a result when you have more resources. So the fulfillment for me is I look at things and I go, okay, what are things that a successful person like this, that they can't duplicate, that only I can do? So like when I go to someone and I go, okay, I'm going to do a launch or something with them, right? Or I want to use their funnel builder. Yeah, because like, I can use mine, but like they're going to have a funnel builder. They're going to have a copywriter. Because like that stuff, they already know. They know how it operates. They're not hiring me for that. They're hiring me for this, right? And so I have a very skills-based business. I'm very, very aware that I sell me, right? And I'm okay with that because with the model of podcast and how I sell things, I can charge a lot of money for it because I can get in front of people that allow me to charge a lot of money. So my fulfillment looks a lot of strategy, right? A lot of belief creating in them, a lot of creating certainty for them and what not to do and what to do. And then just overseeing and making sure things get delivered on time and we go and get the launch. That's it. And yes, does it require me to give dedicated time? Yep. Does it require me to be focused? Yep. But that's why I have this studio that I built in my basement with a digital whiteboard and teleprompters. And I can see and I can think and I can visualize. I'm going to create that experience for them and deliver that to be like, cool, here. So that is why I think it's a lot easier to fulfill for higher ticket people. But you don't sell to a high ticket person the way you sell to a low ticket person. The low ticket person, you sell, oh my gosh, like you can do it. With a high ticket person, you just sell certainty.
That's pretty cool. Just to follow up on that, in terms of, I've seen packages where, you could like sell a 10K monthly subscription for like a specific type of service with a specific outcome and stuff like that. But when you're talking about especially selling a personality type and maybe selling like a 6-figure deal, what are you exactly pricing it on? Is it the hourly rate? Is it the outcome?
Outcome.
You don't need to get super specific. Okay, interesting. Can you give like an analogy? Like let's say, how does that look like at a pricing standpoint? That gives a very clear understanding on like how the whole game you're playing works.
Yep, for sure. So I should clarify. First, I figure out the problem and then I go, if I solve that problem, what's the outcome I get? And I go, cool, how do I price accordingly? Right? So I'll give you a business example, but then I can also give you, different examples if you want to do health or relationships, right? If I know that the problem that my customer has is they don't have enough leads, right? That's their biggest problem, more leads in their business. So let's say they're doing $1 million a year in revenue. And I know that we could do a launch and with their email list of 25,000 people, we could create a Facebook group or do a launch and we could roll out a product We can get the whole entire thing launched. We could do a 5-day challenge and we could pull out $1 million worth of sales, right? Because they've got a $5,000 offer and an $18,000 offer, right? So I look at that and I go, all right, well, guess what? A person that only has a 2,000 person email list has the same exact problem. But because the resources are infinitely more, like so much more with this bigger person, the problem solved, the outcome we're going to get is so much higher. So I have a client that they sell a offer. That's their offer, right? They sell to business owners and corporate and things of that nature. So I go to them and I say, okay, look, I have to help you sell five people at and you make $500,000. 5, right? 10 would be $1 million. So if I walk into that person and say, your biggest problem right now is you do not have a way to take people online that are interested in your stuff and sell a package. I'm going to help you solve that problem to where now you have an automated process to do this. We're going to use a webinar or a 5-day challenge or whatever. And all I've got to do is get 5. Do you think we could get 5? And they're like, yeah, of course. Cool. So if we only got 5, that'd be $500,000. If we got 10, it'd be $1 million. And I show them my process and I go, that's my proposal to you. I'm going to build you an automated process that converts people over. We'll know it's working when we sold 5 people. You're going to make $500,000. I'm $100,000. Why would someone say no to that?
Yeah, especially if they have the money. No questions.
Even if they didn't have the money for a second, like they did, yeah. But let's say they're like, man, we don't have $100,000 lying around. I'm like, so why would you're asking your clients for $100,000, right? So like, what would you tell your client if they didn't have $100,000, right? Well, we could do whatever, $50,000 down. I'm like, cool, $50,000 down, but then I want a percentage, right? So like, cool, let's do $50,000 down or $60,000 down, whatever it is. But now, because I'm confident in my process, I want 20% of everything we sell up to, and they go, cool. Right? And I go, sweet, sounds good. Because I'm confident because all I have to make is 5 sales. Right? Like if everything went wrong, I could literally get on the phone and start calling their list to sell their, does that make sense?
Yeah.
By the way, this person has a 60,000 person email list, right? And you're like, okay. So that's how I go through and I price things, and people, they look at it and they go, who would pay me $100 to build a funnel? I'm like, no one, because you're not building them a funnel. Like that's not what you're selling, right? You're helping them turn leads into customers online and make $500,000, and you're asking for $100,000, right? So the podcast allows you to get in front of those people, and then the certainty that you create allows you to sell them. And I will say, change your customer, change your life. That's a good saying.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I mean, you and I are like so much into this ClickFunnels community and the high level coaches, consultants, high ticket service providers and whatnot. Like, I would love to kind of, if you could actually go over like the common mistakes everybody's doing and what are the potential solutions for it. That would just, blow up a lot of misconceptions of people on running marketing and how they're actually getting clients for themselves.
Common mistakes on what? Like the podcast?
Like common mistake on like running their business itself. Like how do they price, who do they sell to and stuff like that. For example, think about like a typical person who walked up to you, FHL, and talking about their business problem. Now, what do you like obviously see like, oh, that's the thing that actually like, like which is keeping them poor. Like, oh, I know why you're poor. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, once again, I'm dumb. Don't listen to me about business advice. I don't know how to run a business. I don't know how to run a business, right? Like, go talk to people that know how to run a business if you want to learn how to run a business. I know how to make money, right? I know how to sell things. But like, I thought those were the same thing when I first got started. And then I realized, oh, they're not. You can have a super big business and not make any money. And you make a lot of money and not run a business, right? So like, my specialty is that if you're, I believe that your life changes pretty drastically significantly when you get your first 100 free and clear liquid in the bank, like after taxes, free and clear, like your life, you're like, whoa, life, wow, right? So like, if you're looking to make couple $100,000 or $1 million, I'll start with the question that you said with the number one problem people coming up to me at FHL. If you don't understand sales and what you're actually doing if you don't understand what it means to sell something or make money, right? Like you're not going to have success with it. It's like if you don't understand marriage and you go get married, you're probably in for a bad time, right?
Yeah.
But like if you understand marriage, like I have an amazing relationship with my wife. I love my wife. People tell me all the time, marriage is so hard. Marriage is so hard. Marriage is so hard. I'm like, kinda, but also like we knew what we signed up for. Like I love marriage. Every challenge that comes with it. Like I don't feel like marriage is that complicated, right? Like people, you know what I'm saying? They just went and studied marriage. So I think the number one problem that people have is they don't understand what actually causes people to make money. Your job as an entrepreneur is you get paid to solve problems. That's it. And like Dan Henry told me this. I paid him $100,000. I spent 2 days with him in his house down in Costa Rica. We flew down there and took a helicopter to his private pad and insanity, right? And he goes, Josh, making money is the simplest thing in the world. Do you know how you make money? You find a problem that people have, you create a solution to that problem, and you sell the people with that problem that solution. That's it. That's how you make money, right? And so the number one mistake or the issue that I see people running into in the ClickFunnels world, that was, your question, or just in general, is like they don't actually know the problem that they solve for people.
Yeah,
They don't.
that's deep.
They think that they solve people need a funnel. And it's like, I sell funnels. It's like, no, you deliver funnels. That's not what you sell, right? It's like, Henry told me this. I'm like, people want a podcast. He's like, Josh, no one gives two craps about a podcast. He actually said, nobody gives a shit about a podcast, right? And I'm like, yes, they do. And he's like, no, they don't. So Josh, people buy three things. Only three. Dan, $30 million, right? I'm like, all right, Dan, tell me what they are. He goes, people want to make more money. They want to have more sex, or they want to look hot. That's it. And like sex connection, look hot, be healthy, right? But that concept of like, oh, wait a second. What I'm actually helping people do in business is I'm helping them make more money, get more clients.
Yeah.
I'm helping them like have better connection with their spouse, have more sex, right? Like with themselves or their spouse or whatever. Or I'm helping them be healthier, right? And it is shocking to me how many people will come. I'm in the same boat. This is me. I mean, this is why I pay coaches hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? I think I've paid coaches like $400,000 or something like that, right? Is to get out of my own head. And people come to me and they're like, I sell this. I'm like, no, you sell one, two, or three. That's it. You only sell one of those three things, right? So the first mistake is you don't know the problem that you solve and you overcomplicate it big time. Your vehicle is the unique way of doing that. But like, you don't know the problem you solve. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Now, it really comes down to when somebody's actually thinking about like solving that problem part, it really comes down to, as you mentioned, like finding the right, like rich people problem, solving that rich people problem. Now, you have crafted your business around not having a technical expertise technically, but you still are, bad at selling, but you made the sales actually happen through your podcast. If I may ask a question about what actually did go into that part, like learning sales and actually making it happen, and how would somebody who is maybe underconfident about their sales ability, like how to actually solve a problem, how to actually get good at sales, what did you do?
That's a great question. And I want to be very clear. I didn't say I had no expertise. I just said that I didn't show off what they were front facing. Right?
So you just acted dumb. You're not like really dumb.
No, I'm dumb. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm pretty dumb, right? Like I grew up, like I don't, because if I think I'm smart, then I overcomplicate things. Because if I tell myself I'm smart, then I try to make things sound smart. And when you try to make things sound smart, they become complex. And when they become complex doesn't scale and you can't make any money. People think tell people, oh, I'm dumb because like they think like I want to put on this character. No. I remind myself that I'm dumb because if I try to think I'm smart, I make dumb decisions. If I try to be smart, I end up being dumber. But if I just remind myself, wait a second, wait, Josh, you're right. Dude, dumb it down, bro. Like you don't operate here. Like then I get results, right? So the front facing thing is I sucked at sales. I sucked at them. I did door-to-door sales, business to business for a whole year. I made one sale the whole year.
Ooh,
okay.
Oh, that's bad.
Bad. Okay, so bad. Then I hired a coach and I was like, I think it was $3,000. It was either $3,000 or $4,000 I paid him. And I was like, teach me how to sell. And he goes, the secret to sales is just stay on the phone with people until they buy. Terrible advice. I would sit on the phone with people for 3 or 4 hours, not make the sale. So when I say I was terrible at sales, I was terrible at them. But Alex Hormozy, right? Like sometimes you just got to put in the reps. I have sat on thousands and thousands of sales calls, right? And maybe not thousands, probably like 2,000, probably I bet 2,000 plus, I bet. And I learned from Myron Golden, right? People buy things for one reason only, because they feel like it, right? So rather than trying to sell things, focus on creating an environment that makes them feel like buying. Energy environment. What I have learned about sales is that people buy, going back to the Sam Levis thing, is that people buy to have their problem solved. That is it. If you can show them how to solve their problem and get them to where they want to be, and you wrap that in emotion, feeling, like Myron said, you can sell just about anything to anyone. And so when you look at people, like what do you think? The number one objection, right? People say, oh, like when I'm on sales calls, the number one objection I experience is what? I don't
have the money. Yeah, no money.
Then start selling to people that have money. Like, remember when I said I'm dumb? It has to be that simple for me to understand. Because if I'm like, you have to do this thing and say this thing and position it this way and blah, 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 and all that, I like forget. But if you're just like, Josh, if the number one objection is they don't make enough money, they don't have enough money, then just go find someone that has the money and then that would go away. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty smart, right? Oh, let me go do that, right? So first problem is like you said, it's like people don't know the problem they solve. I didn't know the problem I solved. That was my big issue. And I thought I sold Facebook groups. No, I helped people get more leads in their business. Because they want more clients, they want more money, right?
Yeah.
Then the second is change the person you sell to. You're selling to the wrong person, right? Everyone's selling to broke people. Everyone's selling to beginners. That's great if you want to do a group coaching program and get 50 people in. But if you want to charge $100,000 for something, Don't sell to someone that makes $62,000 a year. Sell to someone that makes $2 million, right? And when you do that, I found that most of my problems weren't actually problems. Most of my objections weren't actually objections. I was just selling to the wrong person. And so sales became infinitely easier when I tried to sell to a person that actually had the problem I solved and had the resources to pay to have it solved.
Yeah.
And the podcast allowed me to get in front of people that had it.
Yeah, I mean, you can really, really hijack it. And what I really understand is, and just adding to what you're saying, the dumb part is not like, it's like you're thinking in first principles. I think that's what like really dumb, like what you're actually meaning by it. And it's really interesting to see the approach on how you're taking a business problem legitimately and not listening to all these complex solutions out there. And you're just like, first principles, they don't have money, great. Find people who have money and boom, problem solved. And
Like,
that's just really
like
smart.
what? Like, dude, don't you want to have a life? Like, don't you want to go and like be with your family and do things you love and go and read and study? Like, I assume if you're anything like me, like you don't want to sit around and sell people all day. Like you have things that you'd rather be doing, right? You do this to make an impact on the world, not to struggle, right? And I think we just get so caught up in this idea that we've been told and convinced by society that somehow that making money has to be hard and complicated and struggle, and you have to struggle to go and do it, right? And then if by the way, if you don't struggle to go and do it, that somehow you're bad or evil or cheating the system or something. And it's like this programming and the system of like, this is it. And you're like, listen, I don't make that much money in the grand scheme of like, you compare me to Russell Brunson and I'm a peasant, right? He makes $2 million in an hour and a half. What? Right? Like Alex Ramosi, right? But if you compare the time that I spend selling to the amount of money that I make compared to the average person, I make a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Because I only sell to a few people and they do all, make sense? So I really do believe that the secret to all of life, if you will, in business and entrepreneurship is understand the model, understand what you're optimizing for, right? I am not here to tell you my model is the best. That would be dumb. I don't know you. How could I possibly understand if your model is the best? If I'm going to sell you something, I can't possibly know if I can help you until I get to know you. That's why I have a podcast, right? So for me, I go, what do I want to optimize for? Well, I know how much money I need to make a month. I know how much money I need, like I want to make a month. I know how much money would be life-changing, right? And I'm like, cool. I'm going to optimize for this. Do I want to build a business? No. Cool. Like a big complicated one. If I never want to have more than, let's say, 5 employees. Cool. So and I want to make this amount of money. Cool. And I want to work with these type of people. Cool. Well, then these are my these are my non-negotiables. Let me change and adjust and look and see. And what if I can go and model and build something that allows me to go and get those things? I learned it from Sam Ovens. You take a piece of paper, you draw it on, draw a line down the middle and go, here are all the things I want to do. Here are all the things I don't want to do. Here are my different options. How do I get everything I want to do on one side and everything I don't want to do on the other? Right? Simple, dumb, right? And then you look at it and you go, how do I reverse optimize for that? And so my message to entrepreneurs or to people that like are in business, I'm like, if you want to build a business, please don't listen to me. You would do a disservice by listening to me, right? Like if you do not value freedom, like don't listen to me, right? If you don't value that, don't, because I didn't build the model to do that for you. But if you want to learn how to sell stuff for lots of money and you want to learn how to get around successful people and you want to optimize your life to, get paid very well for your expertise so you have time to go do other things, and you feel like maybe you aren't good enough and you feel like maybe you've gone through some things where you're struggling with self-worth, like I've been there, I've got a model for you, right? And I that's my offer to you, right? Like I can help you go and get in front of your ideal customer, because I know the problem I solve. The problem I solve is people cannot get in front of their ideal customer. That's the problem, right? Cool. I can help you solve that problem. Make sense? So that's my message to that. And my response to that is like, just know the model that you're after and then find the person that has it.
Yeah, interesting. It definitely comes down to the vehicle and the model you're trying to build upon. And like, it's interesting to see the transition you had from like having an agency to like getting everything, down to, again, you and starting from scratch to rebuilding a multi-million-dollar business overall. Coming back, I would love to understand like the deeper reasons what actually made you to, I would say heal and get back. I know you had coach and, who can I help through, but if you could give like a mini version of it to people who are burnt out and, who are actually feeling, helpless or frustrated, or they could actually get the next client from, stuff like that. Like what was that one thing which actually clicked?
Question. My coach taught me about the importance of identity and knowing who I was. And whenever I looked at myself and tried to think about how great I was, I only saw failures and flaws and like I wasn't enough. But the seeking of identity and understanding that everything, Tony Robbins, the number one force in the human personality is the need to stay consistent with how we define our self-identity, right? And when I realized that like I had to figure this piece out, the true answer is like I found God. And then I found God and I was like, oh wait, lots of people found God, they say. Then I found Jesus. And like, I don't care if you're religious or not. That's between you and yourself and whatever you believe is the higher power. But I know Jesus and I serve Jesus. And my life has been completely completely surrendered to him. And all of my life, I wanted freedom. That's all I wanted my whole life. People are like, you want power? No, I want freedom, because every decision that we made growing up was due to the lack of money, right? It was like, oh, we didn't have this. And so I thought money and fame was the answer. And then I went and got fame, or a version of it. I had followers, right? And I was like, I'm not free here. And then I started making some money, and I looked around at all these other people that were making insane amounts of money, and I got around them, and I'm like, you are just as trapped as I am. That can't be it, right? And then my brother died, and then I was lost there because then there was no purpose. And that you start going around and you go, how do I get freedom? And the ironic part about it all is that I didn't find freedom until I found Christ. And when I fully surrendered myself to Christ and I said, I am yours, you are my king, I recommitted my life to Christ at the end of last year, like, you are who I serve. That's when I found freedom. And that's when I knew who I was. So when people ask me, like, who is Josh Forti? It's like, I'm a child of God saved by him. I am a servant of Jesus Christ. I am powerful. I am influential. I am wealthy. I am free. It is who I am. That is how I operate. Even if my bank account doesn't determine if I'm wealthy and free or not. Nope, I do. And so when you come back to that place of going, who am I? Like, who am I? Like, when I look in the mirror at night, who am I, right? I didn't know who I was. I was lost. I was a Patriots fan. I know who Russell Brunson was. I knew who Gary Vee was. I knew who Tom Brady was. I knew who Elon Musk. I know who I was. Right. And when you start to ask yourself the question, I think that might be one of the most important questions you could possibly ask yourself is, who are you? And when you get back to the point, you just keep asking that question, you will find emptiness and feeling of like not enough until you find the truth. For me, and I believe that the truth is Jesus, right? So I don't know if that directly answers that question, but
It does.
once I knew that, and once I figured out that, then I was like, oh, cool. Now I have clarity. Now I have direction, and everything that I will do and every decision that will be in alignment with that.
Makes sense. That's a beautiful answer. I mean, whoever is listening, they might be religious or not, as you mentioned, but it really comes down to finding their identity and getting clear on it so that they could actually act towards it. Because what you are building or anybody's building is their identity. Like, I am working to build my identity and you're doing the same. And every entrepreneur in the top or the bottom is doing the same indirectly. And I believe having that absolute clarity on what they're trying to build gives that so much sense of relaxation and, pathway to actually walk towards, which I think is the most important step. So now, Josh, I have a list of questions which I would love to go over. You run a very simple business, which you might not be considering as a business, but what kind of tools do you use on a day-to-day basis to manage your clients, your productivity, and your own self?
Oh, that's a good question. Pretty much all communication goes through Voxer. We use School for all of our membership sites for like group coaching or even client portals. We use School. ClickFunnels for all funnels. Active Campaign has been for emails, although I have one of the people that I hired to come in and help me with my email stuff. She's really pushing for us to move over to a different platform, high level for email type of stuff. So I don't know where that might change, but as of right now, we use Active Campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Trello for to-dos and to keep things organized. Gmail, obviously, for all of our email stuff. Dude, everything I do is off of Google Docs. So I'm a big fan. Google Docs and Loom videos, man. That's the magic. So I would say those are probably the main ones. Stripe, but we're moving over to an actual bank payment processor now. QuickBooks for organization and bookkeeping. But everything really is built around ClickFunnels. ClickFunnels is kind of the main one there. Yeah, that's our CRM's Active Campaign. Yeah, so that's probably the big ones. Yeah.
Makes sense. Appreciate that. Now I would love to go over
Simplecast. Simplecast is where we put the podcast out on. So Simplecast is for Apple and Spotify and all that. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So is that like Anchor FM? Is that like where you actually publish, or is that where you record? Okay, makes sense. Okay, cool. Now I would love to understand like your daily routine. I know you're a freedom guy. So how does your routine looks like from the time you wake up to the time you sleep?
That's a great question. So once again, we're rebranding the podcast. And I played around with the idea. I really want to call it Freedom Paradox. I don't know if we will or not, but the whole idea of freedom is a big paradox because it's like, if you want freedom, you have to have insane discipline, right? It's like the back and forth. So my days are actually pretty darn structured. I wake up at about 4:15, 4:30 on Mondays, and I'm off to the gym right away. The schedule is now changing slightly because of the new program starting, but typically we do Monday morning meetings. I teach a class with my students and clients, kick them off, and then Mondays are pretty much like client meeting type of days to get everybody, make sure everything's good. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays are work days. I'm up, once again, I'm usually to the gym by 5 in the morning is where I'm at the gym. Some Tuesdays and Fridays, it's like I'm there by 5 actually. Mondays, Tuesdays, Fridays. So early to the gym, come back, shower. I spend, half hour or so with my wife and then downstairs working. And then Thursdays are more meetings. So I teach another class on Thursday mornings and then I do a lot more meetings on Thursdays. And then, now we're working back in the podcast schedule as well. I try to block off, at least 2 full days of just no meetings throughout the week and just to sit down and work. And those are just work days. And then I am relentlessly off at 5 o'clock on Fridays. Like I never break that. That's when it's 5 o'clock on a Friday. I no matter where I'm at, I just shut it down and I go upstairs and I hang out with my wife. And so from 5 o'clock on Fridays till, Sundays around 2, I'm pretty hard to get a hold of. I am with my wife. That is our time together. And then, Mondays I'm off it's like 7-4 is how it usually works. I have one short day, and then, from like 7 a.m. I usually do about a 12-hour day, 3 days a week. And then, an 8 or 10-hour day, like 2 days a week.
Interesting. How much sleep do you have like on a day-to-day basis? Like 7 to 8 hours?
Yeah, I really do try to get 8 hours. It's so funny. My wife and I joke, we're old people, man. Like I go to bed at like 7 sometimes on Sundays. It's crazy. You're 8. I usually fall asleep watching Sunday Night Football, but then usually I shoot for 8 hours or so, between 7 and 8 hours. So, we're in bed lights out by 8:30 and, usually sleep by 9. Like if we're up till like 9:30, that is late night for us.
America? I'm just kidding.
Dude, I know. Dude, and that's so crazy because I used to work till 3 o'clock in the morning every morning. I slept until 10 or whatever, but then I got married and I needed structure, and now we're about to have our first kid, and like that's all going to change. But structure has radically improved my life because it has allowed me to, before there was just chaos everywhere, right? And so it was hard to build on chaos. But like when I started figuring out myself, one of the things I realized with Katie is I didn't trust myself, right? So I would tell myself, I'm going to do X, but then I would like not do it and I'd just make an excuse, right? So one of the ways that I back trust with myself was I started telling myself, I will get up at X time. And I just got up at X time. And like now there was like a foundation of trust. So now when I told myself I would do something else, they kind of just started stacking. And eventually after a while, like, dude, I love sleeping in. Don't get me wrong. I love sleeping in, but I rarely do it because my life is too, like the result of structure in my life has yielded me so much outcome that it trumps anything that I want to do with sleeping in. And I sleep in early on like Saturday, or sleep in on like Saturdays, but yeah.
Makes sense. I would love to, I would love you to expand on like that one liner which you mentioned, like, freedom is when you actually have like discipline around it, like the freedom paradox kind of thing. Like help us understand like your perspective on it and like how do you view it? Like it is kind of contradictory, but at the same time, it's actually enlightening as well if you actually go deep into the context. So help us understand that.
Oh man. So like the yin and the yang of life, right? The whole concept of physics, whenever you do one thing, there's an equal and opposite reaction over here, right? So if I want to be dumb and crazy and stupid over here, I've got to be equally smart and offset it over here, right? And like I learned that a lot from Sam Ovens of just like studying physics. He's like, if you want to understand yourself, if you want to understand success, if you want to understand life, just study physics, study how the world works, right? And so the idea behind radical freedom in your life is if I want to, so I'm pretty frugal. I don't spend my money on a lot of things, but one of the things I always spend money on, like I will spend stupid, like too much money almost sometimes, like on is like status, convenience. So like I fly first class, not even because the seats are bigger, but because I want to be the first one on the plane and the first one off the plane. If you charge me, $25 extra to like go and board first, I don't like waiting. I'm impatient, right? Like we have toll roads in Denver, right? Where it's like 2 roads are free. And then there's like a third road and you can pay like a toll and you can like, there's nobody on it because you pay like $2 extra, right? But you can drive so fast every time, right? So like for me, if I'm going to go spend my money on things like that yield me, I could do without them. I've got to go be smart with my money elsewhere, right? Same thing with, anyone. If you're going to go and be dumb with your money first and you're not smart with your money, then you are going to run out of money and now you're not going to be able to do anything. You're going to be trapped forever. But if you're first just smart with your money and you go invest it and then use that to go and buy things, then you can go do dumb stuff, with this money because you were smart with it first, right? And so the concept of having freedom is you have to decide, like for me at least, I just came to the realization in studying this, and I spent a tremendous amount of time studying this through the death of my brother and through, like finding Christ and God. Like Christ was really finding Jesus was like the weird part about it all, because it was this thing of Christ basically said, you must give me everything, all of it, right? You can't just give me some of your life. If you're going to follow me, you give me all of it. Your whole life now becomes mine. And like, that's a ridiculous ask, right? That's insanity for someone like me who wants total control. But once I did that, I was in so much pain and I was in so much chaos and I was in so much, like I was so lost, right? Over here without Christ. I was like, cool. You want all of it? I'll give you all of it. I'm going to give you all this bullshit, right? I'm going to give you all the crap that I'm going through. I'm going to get all of it. And this thing happened when I submitted myself to him and I said, Christ, like you are the King of Kings, Lord of Lords. I am in. I will follow you to the ends of the earth. Tell me what you want me to do. Christ looked at me and said, I mean, metaphorically, right? When I'm, praying and I'm going through this, he said, cool. I have given you a tremendous amount of skills, talents, and abilities. You better go and use them. I will guide you, but you better go use them, right? And so now I have this immense amount of freedom in knowing like I can build and go and create in this. And as long as I'm aligning that with where Christ is calling me, Christ is going to bless it. He's going to give me this. So I have immense freedom within these operating boundaries. And now guess what what I don't have. I don't have all the guilt, and I don't have all the shame, and I don't have all the feeling of loss and like I'm not enough, because I'm enough for Christ, right? Like I have that. And so this weird thing of, because I took all this thing that I was trying to control and I gave it all to Christ, along with all my skills, talents, and abilities, Christ was like, cool, I created all things good. Here, you're going to take these good. I'm going to take away the bad. You're not going to have troubles, because you will, right? But I'm going to go give you, as long as you operate in these parameters. And like understanding that freed so much, because it's like with my wife, I'm married. I love my relationship with my wife. I can't go sleep with other women, right? So I have incredible freedom inside of my marriage. Also, I can't go sleep with other women, right? Like, duh. And so it's that paradox, that concept of, in order for you to be free, I believe you have to first decide what you want. Because in order to be free, you got to sacrifice, right? And so that concept of the yin and yang and studying the physics, and what Sam taught me is, all right, cool. You're going to have to sacrifice, but it'll be worth it if you get what you want, and you can have freedom in that. So that's kind of like that.
Interesting.
I think that structure of things. Of
Yeah,
how
I love that.
view life.
Yeah, I think nobody can have it all. You gotta decide what you really want, and then just like sacrifice whatever you didn't have in your original list. And I would love to kind of, I understand, like, you actually have dedicated your life to Christ, and you are a huge follower of that. But before you actually do that, what was your religious, like, perspective? Like, how religious were you? What were your thought process? I'm just curious, out of curiosity.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in the church. I grew up very religious. So I knew the Bible. I knew Christianity. It hurt me. It was very religious. It was very rule following. It was very fear based. It was very follow these rules or you go to hell. And so when I moved out, I just left, right? And I was like, God, it's not that I don't believe God. I know God exists. I acknowledge you. God, I'm going to go and I'm going to figure out this money thing on my own. I'm going to go figure out this success thing on my own, right? And I'll come back when I need you, type of deal, right? And so I knew the Bible. I knew it very well, growing up and all the things. But what led me back was I grew up in an environment, not so much from my parents. My parents did a really good job, I think, on a lot of things, but like just from the people around me, of God was this guy in the sky that had this iron fist. And if you didn't follow the rules, you were going to be banned to hell, type of deal, right? And I have tattoos, and gosh, you're definitely going to hell if you've got tattoos, right? And if you, say bullshit, like how dare you, right? Like, you know what I mean? And so like when I reaccepted Christ, what I found fascinating was, I think most Christians look at God and they put God in a box and they go, God is this thing where I have to follow the rules in order to accept him. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. You understand, right? Like Jesus, he is the king of the universe. Like he beat all of it. Like on the cross, like he defeated death. He defeated all of the evil and all of the bad. He took all of the terrible, horrible shit and pain and suffering and all of that, and he beat it. King of all kings, the Lord of all lords. He reigns over everything. And when I serve him, when I submit my life to him, I am taking all of this baggage and all of these pain and all of this problem, and he is removing that from me, and he is making me whole and clean. And I get to serve that guy, and that guy is the king. And like, guess what? When I gave my life to Christ, it is about relationship, not religion. It's not about rules. And just like in marriage, like if I marry my wife, I love my wife. She is amazing, right? And if I were to go and all it was emotion and there was no structure in our relationship at all, right? That would be problematic. Are you married?
No, I'm young.
You're 20. Dude, amazing. You're killing it, right? Like if I had no structure in my marriage, that would be problematic, right? So religion, or these rules that we were told like, don't cheat on your wife. That would be a rule. It's like, don't sin or you're going to hell. And it's like, no. I have a relationship with my wife. People are like, do you find it hard not to cheat? I'm like, what? No, why would I ever even think about cheating? What? I love my wife. Yes, it's a rule because it needs to be a rule, but it's not a problem. So I look at Christ the same way in this relationship as I go, no, Christ gave me these rules. Yes, but he gave me them so that I knew how to operate. And I knew how to not go and do these things, right? So that I could focus on that. Yeah, it sucks. But I get to serve the king of the universe, the guy that beat everything, right? And so my view of Jesus, like I talk to Christians about Jesus, I'm like, yo, what are you even saying right now? You're acting like you're serving some like what? Like this is the king, like the king of all of it. And I don't think very many people have that view of Jesus, but that's Jesus, right? I don't have such a limited view, but you know what I mean? Saying. And so for me, it became very, very easy. Like I like freedom and power and winning and all the things. And it's like, yo, you can either like be on the losing team or you can literally be on the guy that beat it all. And like, he will love you and he will support you and he will take away all your problems. Which one do you want? And I'm like, yep, that one. Yep. Yeah. So my
That
view of
makes
Jesus
sense.
is very different than most Christians. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's intriguing as well. I have a lot of friends, who actually follow Christianity and whatnot. And the passion you have and the clarity you have about what you're doing, trust me, I think they need more education. Looks like that's what it comes down to. Coming back to the next question, if you could go back and talk to 20-year-old yourself, what would be the one suggestion you would give yourself, Josh?
But how old?
20-year-old, if you could just go back and talk to that young Josh, who's like excited, want to make some money. Hey, like, this is the one advice, kid. Make sure you don't, how does that look like?
Buy Bitcoin. That's a good question. I'm a big Bitcoin guy.
Pumping up,
I would
baby.
probably tell him, keep asking yourself who you are until you find Christ. Life
Trust it.
changes, man. It changes once you know who you are. It changes, and like no money, no success, no fame. You hear all these stories of people that they have it all and they commit suicide, and it's not because that's what you do when you have it all. It's because that's what happens when you don't know who you are and you can't find fulfillment. So I would say know who you are. Keep asking yourself that question until you find Christ, and then like get married, but know who you are. And if you do that, you'll be all right.
Love that. That's deep. Now, what are your life's biggest achievements and next bigger goals for yourself?
My what?
Your life's biggest achievements and next big goals.
My biggest achievements. I don't know. Marrying my wife was a pretty big deal, dude. Like, she's awesome. I don't think I can do much better than that. Like, in any area, I think she's at the top of that list for sure. So marrying her was pretty fantastic. I think that some of the things that I've done well, some of the bigger achievements are the relationships that I built for sure. With the podcast or whatever, my relationship with Brad Gibb, my relationship with Russell Brunson, my being able to integrate my walk with Christ into what I do. I think those are definitely some of the bigger achievements. And just being able to, selfishly, I think if, I know that you want something juicy, I have intentionally designed pretty much every single area of my life and I have got it. And every single person that told me that I would not amount to it or it wouldn't work out or like whatever. And it's like, all right. Right. So like,
good luck.
Right. So like, I think, selfishly or, if you want a little ego in there or whatever, it would be like, I drive the cars I want to drive. I live in $1 million house. I get to hang out with people that I want to hang out with. If I want to take a day off, I answer to no one. Right. Like Christ, but like in the business, like I decide my schedule. I get to like wear a mask. Are you freaking kidding me? Like take a shot, like actually go shove it up your ass. So like, I don't care. Right. Like I will not no. Right. So like have it, like, I think that's probably a really big achievement of like being able to design the life that exactly how I wanted to create it and go achieve that. But that's lots of people do that. I think bigger ones would be the relationships for sure. And my wife, she's at the top of the list. And then for achievements, what's next? More of the relationships, right? Big vision goal, a decade down the road is, I want to be friends with Joe Rogan and Elon Musk. I want to be in that circle. And so, figuring out how to operate at that level, figuring out how do they think? How do they operate? Like, who do they surround themselves with? What thoughts go in their mind, right? So figuring out that, building something that's valuable to them. And then right along with that, and more importantly would be just furthering the message of Christ to as many people as possible and delivering a message of Christ, not of Christ as this limiting figure that makes you follow all the rules, but rather this message of Christ that like, no, he's the king. Like the king, the Lord of Lords, like reigns over everything, all powerful, beat it all. And he loves you, right? Furthering that message. Yeah.
Makes sense. That's interesting. I mean, one thing, Josh, like I really kind of enjoy on this podcast is you're like not that person who tries to like maul things, like to make it sound better. You're just like, yeah, some people are gonna hate it. No problem. Here's what I want to say. I love that. I love that first. I'm trying to practice that, and I'm glad we are connected now.
But why do you? If I can flip the question on you.
For sure. Yeah.
Where do you feel?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you feel resistance in doing that?
Yeah, it really comes down to the past I've been on, right? Like, when you say something, people don't accept you. They put labels on you. They see you different. They talk about you and all that stuff. Carrying from school, and childhood, and college, and family, and stuff like that. So just built upon, and now, especially when you're in business and you have all these awards and clients to show up for, and your personality and your brand. Now you're like, oh, should I say something controversial? But I see Elon Musk, labeling crazy stuff, which he just doesn't care. Yeah, it's just crazy to the level these guys play. I'm trying to practice it. Partially, depending on like what exactly we're talking about. I mean, could be much better answer if I'm like talking about a particular situation. But I do feel that sometimes I do tweak the message depending on the situation and the audience I'm speaking to, just because I want to convey the message in a polite manner instead of what I actually felt. Talking to my employees, it could be talking to the clients, it could be like different situations and different times for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. On a scale from 1 to 10, how confident or how certain are you of who you are, do you think?
22, just to put into perspective, and and I'm still kind of in the
so
figuring
low.
out stage, but she said, yeah, I would say like maybe like 8.5, but like, I mean, this is to
Wow, that's
my
awesome.
knowledge. Yeah, this is like my knowledge. There is unknown unknowns, which I like really don't know, yet in my life because of my age and my experiences and, personal life
Yeah.
and whatnot, which I'm totally excited to, explore and learn from, but that's where I would rate myself. I'm like very stable and I understand things. Like I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm going through and I know where I will actually end up as well to my extent, unless there is some external. If I get hit by a bus, like that's a different story. But I try to control my own stuff.
Yeah, dude, you're 22. You're gonna freaking like you already are crushing it. Like you're headed down the right path. Yeah. My only, I don't know, advice isn't even the right word, right? But just that guiding principle of just like knowing who you are and like be okay with people, be okay with some people hating you, right? Like be okay with
Yeah.
being like, you said what, right? And it's like they're not
Yeah.
hating you, they're just insecure themselves or they don't know, right? Like I have people
Trust
that
me.
have insanely different opinions than I do, and I respect the heck out of them because I'm with who I am, right? Same thing with people that me, right? They hate what I say, but they're like, cool, you're cool, right? Like whatever, like whatever. And so like, dude, speak your mind, be tactful, right? Like be smart, about it, and be wise, I would say. But like you're gonna crush it. You're 20 freaking 2. Holy crap, dude, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's few things which I've like made like complete dumb choices. Like in 2020 when I was running ads. Quick story here. Like there was one negative comment, and I was like, that's it. We're pulling back. We're not running ads. And, because I look like a 16-year-old with like, with no accent and nothing. Yeah, I had no words to speak back then, but I was good at what I was doing. I mean, the proof exists, but it's just that I pulled off because of that one negative comment, but I do regret that. Yeah, it is. And let's get to the next question. I know as entrepreneurs or business owners, we don't consider mistakes as mistakes, but if you could look back and be like, oh, I could have avoided that thing and it might help a lot of people, what would that mistake would be if you could share a few?
I think some of the biggest mistakes always came from me being like, it wasn't the mistake itself. It was what caused the mistake, me being dumb. So it was, if I didn't tell the truth fully, right? If I tried to bend things or, something like that. And that would always lead to way more problems than whatever it was, right? And so I think my biggest mistakes came from not actually the things I did or didn't do, but rather the not being in alignment with who I was and feeling like I couldn't speak the truth or do the thing that I knew I was supposed to do, at least in my life. So I would say like, telling the truth early on, because, end of last year when I recommitted my life to Christ, I just spent the first like 6 months of this year just going back and fixing past stuff, right? And like I shut down the business and like I just disappeared for 6 months, and it was like going back and fixing old relationships and apologizing for things, and like it sucked. And so just that I think would probably be the big mistakes. And then in business, not being clear on what it was that I actually sold or did with the problems and stuff, which then led to chaos. And so what would happen is I would do a lot of things right. Like, so for example, I would do a launch and I was really good. I lined up all these things right, but whatever I sold, I didn't really know what I was going to deliver. I didn't really know. And so even though I had this great thing that I could have scaled, it created so much more chaos and I wasn't ready for it. And so I couldn't scale. And I ended up feeling like I wasn't successful or wasn't working because I just didn't get clear. I tried to overcomplicate things. And so just, trying to do too many things at the same time, trying to I don't know if over promise is the right word, but over like sell really. I didn't need to sell all the things. I didn't need to sell 7 things. I just needed to sell one thing, but I didn't know which one it was. And so I tried to sell 7, in one product or whatever, right? So I think it really just comes down to lack of clarity on like the business things, trying to do too much there. And then, just making dumb decisions and dumb mistakes, not doing the things I knew to do and coming up with some reason for that. I think those would probably be the big ones. And then, from a financial perspective, dude, I made a lot of money and I lost a lot of money because I didn't understand money. So I would say if anyone, Jim Rohn says, if you ever came across $1 million, you better learn how to be a millionaire real quick, right? So I made a good deal of money early on and then lost it because I didn't know what I was doing. And so Brad Gibb changed my life in that sense. So I think one of the big mistakes around money is I didn't realize that there was a difference between making money and keeping money. I didn't realize there was a difference between keeping money and investing money or, multiplying it. I didn't realize there was a difference between business and making money. I didn't know, right? And so one of the things I've been very, very blessed with early on, for whatever reason, is I've gotten around smart people. And most of my decisions, my dumb decisions and the mistakes that I've made have come from either A, lack of, like I didn't get around smart people. I didn't ask for advice on that, or B, ignoring advice from them that I knew I should have followed.
Yeah, that's a playbook for making the best decisions. If you just, do the opposite of what you just mentioned, you're guaranteed to make the best decisions. Love that, Josh. Yeah, now I have next question for you and we'll kind of wrap this up. And what kind of inspires you to kind of wake up? What's like your main inspiration and who are the key people involved in your journey for your success?
Oh man, what inspires me to wake up? I love life, dude. Like,
in what sense though?
Like it's an adventure. I know me. I get to wake up every day and I get to push me. And I've designed the life that like I don't hate much of what I do. I don't really hate anything I do. Even the things that suck, I love. So I think what gets me out of bed in the morning and what inspires me is like probably like great conversations and really cool relationships and ideas and being able to go and build and be around and share this message. I love the concept that we get to go and we get to create a better future and that we get to share a message with people and that we get to make people's lives better and that I get to make money. I think I'm very, very driven by the ability to impress is not the right word, but take care of and impress my wife. Like I love spoiling my wife, right? So, financially, like I am driven in that sense, but I love life. I love who I am. I love learning about Christ. I like being able to check things off the list and knowing I have targets, I have goals, right? I'm very clear on where I'm going. And so like, I know that if I move forward things, I'm going to get a financial payday. I'm going to get a time payday. I'm going to get to go on vacation. I'm going to get to go study. Like for the month of December, my daughter's about to be born, right? And so for the month of December, I'm doing like 3 things, right? It's like, I'm hanging out with my daughter and my wife. I'm teaching my clients program or whatever. And I get to just like read and study religion, right? I'm studying Islam right now. And I'm so excited for that, right? I got to wake up and like do that. So I think that's what really drives me is I love life. I love waking up in the morning and just being like, I mean, I hate getting out of bed. I hate it, right? But I love the idea of life and being able to win really well and serve others. So I think that, and then creating, being the best I can. I have a vision for creating freedom. And now that I'm in freedom, I love living in freedom.
Yeah. And any key people you would like to mention? Any key people you would like to name drop who actually kind of supported you through the journey?
Yeah. I mean, my wife, my mom and my dad, for sure. Mom and dad, early days, for sure. My dad gave us everything we needed, like just worked his butt off for us. My mom taught me so much. My wife supporting me through it all, for sure. Those are the big ones. But in business, it would be Russell Brunson, Katie Richardson, and Brad Gibb. Yeah. Those three people changed my life more than anyone else. And I owe them an immense amount of gratitude. So those 3 people would probably be the 3 biggest ones. Russell, when it just comes to just leadership and money or making money, business, marketing, what's possible, right? Things of that nature. Katie and identity and knowing who the frick I am, right? Like that and getting clear on that. And then Brad, when it comes to money, like actually money, multiplying, investing, wealth, time, all that. Those 3 people have changed my life more than anybody else, for sure.
Josh, you're an amazing personality. Where can our audience find your help, or how can they reach out to you, and how could they talk to you?
Yeah, joshforti is my website. It's super simple, but on there, Instagram is the best way to interact with me. Instagram DMs. Facebook is where I post, a lot of like my life and journey and stuff, but Instagram DMs, and then the podcast, if that's linked on my show or on my website as well. We've got the show. We've got some really great episodes coming out. We've got some cool people lined up for that. But yeah, check out that and listen in if you're interested in learning about life's biggest questions and what successful people, how they think. Those would be the best places. Yeah.
That's pretty much it, Josh. That was definitely insightful. It was a power-packed conversation from almost minutes, if I'm not mistaken. Now, coming back, any last word before we conclude the whole podcast session for today?
Any what?
Any last word before we conclude the whole session for today?
Just, go design the life that you want to go design and go run after it relentlessly and unapologetically, but understand that starts with knowing who you are. And, if I could leave one message to you, it would be, you can be free as an entrepreneur, as a person, like you can be free, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And I would invite you that if you've never experienced Jesus, if you have experienced Jesus and it's been a terrible experience, I would invite you to go search and seek out the real Jesus, because he's not just pretty great. He is everything, literally, and he will make your life infinitely better beyond what you can imagine. And don't listen to what the church says about him. Don't listen to what, others say about, go see what he says about him. Go experience him. And that's where I think you'll find true freedom. So know who you are, go run relentlessly after life, and go learn about Jesus. And I think you can't have a bad life if you do those things.
That's awesome, Josh. Appreciate you jumping on. Again, thank you so much for this opportunity. I think that was definitely a super power packed, how to build relationships, how to charge, and value packed session for a lot of businesses. And for myself, it was definitely key learnings. I'm excited. So guys, hope you enjoyed the podcast. Share this with your friends who might get value out of this. And I will be back with another amazing guest, just like Josh, on this Nikhil Sai show once again. Bye for today. Thank you. Thanks, Josh, for jumping in.